I'm recording.
Yes. Dun, dun, dun.
Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Dun,
Da, da, da. I can't catch the key on this one. Oh, man. I'm like emotionally tone deaf right now. I don't know what that means.
Why are you emotionally tone deaf?
I don't know. We don't have time for it. But I think part of it has to do with the fact that I just watched
I didn't know if it was West Wing related.
Well,
I knew you just got done watching, so.
Well, I did just finish watching the third State of the Union, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Episode 13, Season 2. And it feels like it stopped in the middle of the episode. And so I just feel a little bit like, okay, I haven't even decompressed at all. I mean, I just called you right away, and now we're talking about it. So I'm glad you're here.
That's another way to cope.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're all here today, guys. Welcome to Wingin, the West Wing Podcast. We're going to talk about all things West Wing. And how did you feel about this episode, Sally?
Oh, I love this episode.
You do?
I love it. Do you not love it?
I don't love it. No.
What?
I do not love it.
Oh, I love it.
Would you rewatch? I mean, I would not pick this one. I would pick the Josh and Donna stuff from this episode. Everything else, I like the Ainsley Hayes moment. But overall, there's just too much Mrs. Bartlet conflict. And I think she's a great actress, but I just don't. It's too much.
I like it, though. My very first note is because we open... I'm
stressed out.
Well, should we do that? Let's do the TikTok real fast before we get ahead of ourselves.
Okay,
because the TikTok's pretty easy,
I'm still
actually, because they're doing the State of the Union. That's the big thing. They're doing the State of the Union, and we have Dr. Bartlet being a little upset about something, which we'll get to in a minute, and that revolves around the State of the Union. We also have Joey Lucas back, and she is helping Josh do the polling after the State of the Union. We also have Ainsley Hayes back. She's helping do some of the commentary after it. And basically, it's just a bunch of different plot lines revolving around the State of the Union. Oh, and then there's also a hostage situation in Colombia involving drug cartel and
drug lords.
Yes, very, very, very bad, scary things.
In case there wasn't enough going on.
Really?
They just thought they'd throw some more in.
So that's a brief catch up, and now we can just jump right in. I loved it. I love that. Well, in the previously on, that's what I was about to say before we did that very, very fast TikTok. In the previously on, we see Joey, Ainsley, and Dr. Bartlet. And so we immediately know or assume that they're going to be in this episode. And I love that to start out with because those are three of my faves. So I'm just excited to have all the women back. Yay!
Yep.
So that was a good start for me. So you were on Dr. Bartlet being upset?
Yeah, I just don't she just gets mad. That's what she does. She's Dr. Bartlet and she gets mad. And that's just her MO.
It's a pretty good reason to be mad.
Yeah. And I know she was choking back tears kind of when toward the end when she's all, "We had a deal," Jed.
Wow,
and I thought it was pretty spot on. I didn't even want to play the audio clip. We had a deal. Is it too one note? Probably not. Who am I to say? I'm not Stockard Channing. It just felt like, I don't know what it is. It just kind of turns me off a little bit.
I just think it's great because it's about to bring in the whole story of whether he should run again. And this isn't really a spoiler because this episode brings it in. Because she's upset because they had a deal that based on President Bartlet's MS, he was only going to run for one term.
Or was it that they were just going to discuss it first? Was it for sure that he wasn't going to run or that they were going to talk about it? I thought they were just agreed to talk about it.
The deal was one term because I feel like, and maybe I'm making this up, but I am pretty sure that she's worried about obviously she's worried about his health, but being active and and this will come, no spoilers, it comes into play later that being the president is not the best thing to do when you have this disease. And so, they had agreed one term only. She had to even be talked into that, I'm pretty sure. So that's why she's upset. I mean, she's also upset because there wasn't even a discussion. And that's just on top of the fact that, like, hey, this was the deal. Like, I said, all right, let's do this because we were only going to do it for 4 years. And not only have you decided to keep going, but you decided and moved forward without telling me.
Discussing it with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, not communicating is never good. However, at this point, if we're just watching it through the first time, we haven't even talked to President Bartlet about this. Like, the only people that we've heard talk about re-election so far is Toby and Leo. Like, there's not even been a scene where, like, they've talked with Jed about this. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
true.
She's like, when were you going to tell me that you're running? And
It's
he's like, well, we haven't even heard that he's running yet. He's up,
but
lady.
I think we're to take it... Okay, because Dr. Bartlet knew that he was running just because of the way the speech was laid out. And Dr. Bartlett's a smart lady, and she's very politically savvy, but she's not like a political expert. So if Dr. Bartlet can figure that out from the way the speech has been set up, then there are other people who are figuring it out from that same State of the Union. So I think we haven't talked to Jed about it, to President Bartlet about it yet, and now I'm trying to remember.
I just think it's strange that we haven't seen that.
When we do,
you know, like there was no like, you know, are we doing this?
Because,
are we going for
well,
this? I mean, whatever.
I think, here's what I think. I think he has not officially made up his mind, but he would rather prepare to run again than not prepare, if that makes sense. Like, now's the time to start doing it, so it's better to be set up and decide not to than it is to, like, decide too late that you want to and you haven't done anything. Now, that being said, I think President Bartlet maybe, this is totally just me saying this because there's not a ton of evidence to back it up, but I think he is sort of considering it but not sure, and I think she knows him so well that she knows that he is sure even though he doesn't know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just he's riding off of the momentum ever since Let Bartlet Be Bartlet. Like, ever since we've seen him, like, wanting to actually do things and I wanted to speak, you know, that whole thing.
Right.
Speak now. I think he is just going to keep going until something makes him stop. So it's like the default is that he'll run again just because he's already running.
Right. And and he's starting to realize that, like, there's so much more he wants to do and can't get it done in this amount of time. Mm-hmm. So he's starting to realize that, like, he's on a momentum and he wants things to keep going, but he's also realizing, like, hey, I'm not getting this and this and this done just yet. I need more time to get it done. So I think it's that too. Yeah.
4 years doesn't seem like a long enough time to get.
Well, it really doesn't, especially when you consider, like, how soon the new election season starts. Really, that people are. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's like a lame duck presidency. That people are sort of checked out on your presidency a year before it's even election time. So it does seem like a short amount of time, and that fourth year almost seems like, well, just it's just there. So.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sound like a hater. I mean, I didn't hate the episode, and I'm going to try to be more positive. And I did like, I love Ainsley Hayes. However, and I've missed her. Where's she been? I don't know. But I really didn't like her when she was on TV. I felt like she was just making kind of dumb mistakes on TV. For being because she's so smart, because we know her to be so smart and savvy on TV, she just seems so doughy-eyed. Like, I don't think it would be wise to offer up the information that you haven't met the president yet. Like, I think that's kind of a no-brainer, because you're speaking on his behalf, and they're like, well, they've invited you here to speak for him, but you've never met him. It's like, yeah, maybe we should not highlight that, you know? And then also, like, I don't know. She didn't like the whole fact that she said that what the president suggested may not have been 100% constitutional. Like, in what world? Why? Like, Sam had to remind her, like, hey, can you remember that you're on our side? Like, that's not a small thing. That could have been a whole news cycle in itself that they chose not to be.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I see both of your points. I sort of didn't, I mean, I agree, but I didn't, like, harp on it really. I thought this was one of those instances where, like, Sorkin probably liked what it did for the story more so than whether it was a good idea or not, because I think, like, her saying the unconstitutional thing, I think it brought up the chance for Sam to say, like, hey, how about you don't do that, and to sort of remind us of this combative relationship between them. And I think the not met the president thing was literally just to set up the wonderful scene that is later.
Yeah, that's true.
So I see your point, and I agree, because we, like, the very first time we met her, she was being sassy and wonderful and just, like, flawlessly confident on TV. So it makes, I see what you're saying, that, like, that doesn't match up. You would expect her to be, even if, because say, like, what the president was saying might not be constitutional, you would expect someone representing the White House to sort of flip it, like CJ would. And so I see what you're saying there. I just think
she seemed more concerned with how she was playing rather than what she was saying was playing, which I didn't think was like her. Yeah. But anyway, I still love her as a character.
Oh, I love her. And the whole scene with her meeting the president is so ridiculous, but so perfect.
Ugh. I mean, she's dancing around she's in her office in the steam pipe, what is it? The steam pipe distribution center? Yeah. I don't know. And she's dancing to Blame It on the Bossa Nova in her bathrobe because she, like CJ, sat in the wet paint on the bench out in the garden, which is funny. But, I mean, seriously, and she'd had a drink at this point, and she's all like, oh, dance with me, Sam. I mean, like...
She's enjoying herself.
Things that are out of... She was kicking back, man. Sam was just kind of taking it in.
Sam's reaction to her was it was just cute. It was funny. But the scene, the moment that we're looking at Sam in the camera and Bartlet sort of comes into focus over his shoulder, it's just like, I just like die laughing.
I'm going to put it on Instagram and Facebook. God. It's so good.
Yeah, just of all the things. And Ainsley was so worried about it and all that, and it just makes it even funnier. I think it's just the best.
Especially because, and I thought it was strange, even when he said it, when Sam told President Bartlet to say that, like, some people thought you were just this blonde Republican sex kitten, which, like, I mean, that's, I don't know.
Not like a crazy appropriate thing to say.
Not a crazy appropriate thing to say if you don't have to.
Yeah,
just the way that it played in later when she's in her bathroom.
Because you totally could have had that line and gotten the point without the actual, like, sex kitten phrase. And
you could have said bombshell or, like...
Yeah.
Or something.
Anything,
I don't know.
Because I agree. It was funny,
Vixen.
It's funny when Sam said it to the president because it seems like something Sam would say. He's sort of talking without, like, really thinking about it. But then it was a little when the president said it to Ainsley. I mean, it was still funny, and I still enjoyed it because he's clearly, like, making a jab. That's clearly more about between him and Sam at that point than he and Ainsley.
Yeah,
but
totally.
So it was fine. It just, I don't know. But the whole scene was, I just love.
I did like that scene a lot. It was interesting that Sam was talking to President Bartlet after the speech, and it was kind of like, hey, because the speech went so well, what do I get? It's like, we still paying you or whatever. And so he kind of uses it as a bargaining chip to get Bartlet to meet with Ainsley, which I thought was interesting. Like, he didn't, I mean, I guess he just kind of used that as a segue.
I think, I mean, Bartlet would have done it anyway.
But he's looking out for Ainsley.
As soon as Bartlet realized, though, that he hadn't met, like, a staff member or something, I think he would have done it anyway. I think it was just fun banter.
Oh, good times.
So, that's fun Ainsley Hayes stuff. I like having her back. So, let's go over to my other fave who has returned, which is Joey Lucas.
Joey.
Yay, Joey. She was still just as great and just as Joey in this episode as ever. I mean, she comes in immediately. One of my favorite lines is when she tells Josh, she's late because her plane had faulty mechanics or something like that. And Josh is like, you couldn't do anything about it? And she said, well, I wasn't really paying attention in school when we taught airline mechanics or something like that. And it's just like she's immediately just such a smart aleck to him. And I like it.
The no-collared-esque wit that they can expect all night. I thought that was great. But the first thing she says when she arrives is that, like, she says something about Josh's butt.
You have the cutest little butt in professional politics.
they're super informal with each other at this point.
Yeah. But I thought it was great.
You could already tell from the first moment that Joey gets there that Donna was put off by it. You could tell.
Yes.
She got quiet. You looked at her little sideways glances. Yes, there's something going on with Donna.
So what did you think about this whole storyline throughout the episode? Let's just dive right in.
Okay, this I do like. But I do want to see the rest of it play out, which I think that happens in the next episode, right?
I can't remember.
Second half.
I hope so.
I think it does. I don't know. But, yeah, I like it. I mean, it's like any girl can see through this. This might be very enlightening to our gentlemen listeners because the whole, misdirection thing, the whole, it's not that she's playing hard to get. She's really, trying to push him in one direction so that way he doesn't realize how she feels. Because I think she likes him. I think Donna likes Josh, and we all know it. Except for him, apparently.
Well, no, because he says to Sam on the phone, he says, Donna's being kind of something.
Yeah.
And so I think he does know.
Really? No, I think he knows that there's something going on, but can we just kind of get to it already? Can we just talk about it?
See, that's what I don't really like their storyline in this episode because...
You don't?
As much as I like the whole, will they, won't they, in any series, in anything... As much as I'm on board with that, Ross and Rachel, Jim and Pam, let's do this whole, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? That's fine. I don't like...
Not in real life. It's not fun.
No,
I'll just put that out there right now.
But I don't like the whole, playing games with it like that. I just... See, to me, it makes me... And I love Donna. Donna's one of my favorite characters. Well, they're all my favorite characters, but I love Donna. But it makes me bummed that she would do... That she, it wants to play. Yeah. You like this dude. Don't tell him to date other girls. It's not, and maybe I'm just hating because it's not my style, but I just think it's
you try to be straight up about it.
She's probably in her 30s, right?
No,
we guess late 20s, 30s, early 30s.
We should be able to have an adult conversation.
Right.
Yes, I agree.
And I get that he's your boss. That makes things different. You wouldn't just come out and be like, hey, I like you. But all right, well, move positions or do, if it's, I don't know. I appreciate, what they're trying to do. And I appreciate that we have these little moments of, will they, won't they. But this just bummed me out for Donna. Because it was just girl, you shouldn't be in this situation. You should be with a dude who, sees you and knows that he wants you and wants to be with you and doesn't take 7 years, Yeah,
this is all good life advice for all of us. I'm just taking it all in. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. So I just, and I like there are other episodes where they have will they, won't they. I like when they make little comments and there are little glances and da-da-da-da. It was just this specific storyline with Donna. Anytime that she's oh yeah, go out with so-and-so. It's you don't really want that.
Yeah, she's scared. She's not being truthful.
Right.
She's not sure she can have what she wants. So that's her strategy to deal with it. And Josh is so emotionally stunted that he doesn't really know what to do unless somebody tells him.
That's very true. Very true.
That's why
why
he needs the strong women.
But I still love Josh and Donna and Josh and Donna together. So
yeah.
It's fine.
And I like when she's basically just taking advantage of the fact that he's so exasperated by the fact that the power went out and he doesn't have the numbers yet and he's just obsessing about it. And she's just kind of reveling in any way that she can.
Yeah.
Of annoying him. So it's enjoyable.
Yeah. So there are a lot of little moments I feel I like in this episode. Or not even but are worth mentioning. Toby comes into the Oval Office at the very beginning when they're making last minute tweaks, which I love anytime they show us behind the scenes last minute tweak stuff. But when he walks in, he says something to just Ed. And so I was it's so funny that Andrea's theory was oh, we won't know, maybe they meant to keep it ambiguous. And now immediately, because I don't ever remember them doing this, but he looked at Ed and was Ed, add this in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I thought of that too.
Yep.
So theory debunked.
Ed was identified. That's what I wrote in my notes. But I like the hustle and bustle. At the beginning of the episode, we get
Me too.
The whole, like, the West Wing, 8:45 p.m. Or, like, the timestamp, you know? And I like that because
everything's a flurry.
Yeah.
But not much happens, other than the fact that they get, like, the green light on this blue ribbon, bipartisan, yada, yada, yada. And it's like everything's a flurry, and then they finally get to the door where he's going to go in, and they're like, the President of the United States, and, you know, did you swell with pride? I feel like I was going to just say, like, I'm sure Sally, like, was...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But right before that, I had an even better moment. I don't know why this struck me so much, but right before that, right before he goes out, President Bartlet says a little prayer, and when he says amen, Charlie says amen.
He did.
And I thought that was really sweet. So, because they're just bonded so much. It was a very tiny moment, but I really liked it.
There was a tiny moment that was not so tiny, and I kind of thought it was awkward. When Bartlett pauses to tie his shoes.
Oh.
Like, was that just to heighten the suspense? Because it's like, hurry, we've got less than 4 minutes, and let's go, and the motorcade, and then they walk in, and then, like, Bartlett just stops.
Maybe
and ties his shoe for a while.
The other thing I thought it might have been I don't know if it was meant to be this, but I was sort of reminded, like, oh, yeah, he's just a regular guy. Like, he has to tie his own shoes. And it was sort of this moment of, here's all this grandeur going on, here's all this hustle and bustle and all of this importance and all of this just historic moment type situation. And he has, you know, like his shoe's untied. He has to stop and tie his shoe. And it sort of like grounded it for a second. So then you're like, oh yeah, this is our buddy Jet, not our buddy Jet, but you know, like it humanized him. It made it feel like,
respect here.
Oh right, this is just a normal guy going out that we see in his Notre Dame sweatshirt, you know, on Saturdays. He's about to go give the State of the Union. That's what it did for me. But it could have had a totally different meeting.
Prolonged. It just felt like that could have been accomplished sooner. But maybe he's a slow tire. Maybe he does the double bunny ear around thing, and then like, I don't know. I don't know what he's got going on. He's got weird ways of putting on jackets. Maybe he has a weird shoe tying technique.
Yeah. It was a little prolonged. I'll give you that.
Anyway. Yeah, okay, so Capitol Beat is broadcasting live kind of post-game from the White House for 3 hours, and they're kind of doing round robin of, you know, CJ's there, and then Toby's there.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Toby and Mrs. Bartlett.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Did you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, but you go first.
My only real thought about this specific scene, well, I don't know. It was just odd to me, but it was really, really odd to me that he called her Abby. I know that's not what should have stuck out the most, but at one point he really was like, Abby. And I was like, you're not, no.
Although it does seem like they do have, you know, they do have a longer history, because she even said, and it sounded very relationship-y, which obviously I don't mean in a romantic way, but just in the fact that, like, there's history, where she said, don't talk to me like I'm other people, because you've never done that before. I think I've said that in my life.
But there's not any more history than 3 years, or 4 or 5 years tops, because they just met when President Bartlet started campaigning.
I know, but even 4 or 5 years, I don't know. It just seemed like there was an understanding between them that there was not going to be any sort of, like, posturing, rather than just being honest and straightforward. They're both very straight shooters.
Call the president Jed.
No, that's true. It's true.
So it just felt out of place. Like, maybe
Abby.
that is... I see what you're saying. Like, he's trying to be like, okay, I'm leveling with you. Like, this is just me and you talking. Mm-hmm. But it just was like... It just felt icky to me.
Yeah, I didn't even notice. That's a good point. I liked the line where... that he said on air, and then he told her, he's like, I was just on TV for the 900th time and alienated gun owners, to say nothing of people who own Dodge Durangos. Like, I love that Toby's just so used to making any number of people groups angry, and he's just kind of like, well, who is it today?
I can't really, really remember exactly what their conversation was about, but in my notes, I wrote that he was very smug. That, like, he talked to her as if he knew exactly what was the right thing to do, and he was just explaining it to her.
He didn't seem smug to me. She was really asking, she said, like, she had problems with the language and the last minute changes, and it was almost as though she was going to have the conversation that she had with President Bartlet, with Toby, and ask about, like, are we running? Did you decide that? Because she was very angry, and she knew that Toby was the architect of the speech. But it seemed like toward the end of their conversation, she decided to not go for it and to save it for Jed.
Yeah, well, I think she was just trying to read Toby to see if it was what she thought it was. To see if...
True.
Like, her listening to the speech, because when Charlie comes up to talk to her, which we'll talk about in a second, but when she's in her room, she's rewinding and listening to it over and over again. And I think when she heard the speech, she's thinking, this sounds like you're running for re-election. And I think she wanted to sort of gauge Toby's reaction and see if it, like, confirmed.
We had a deal. Yeah.
So...
I'm just going to play that audio clip over and over. We had a deal. I don't know. I just think it's funny. Charlie. Charlie had he had some fun little lines in this one, I think more than the last episode.
Yes. I don't think we said this in TikTok, but Charlie, the president was balancing his checkbook and found a $500 check that was uncashed that Dr. Bartlett wrote and sent Charlie to investigate this situation because when he goes, she gets angry and he doesn't care if she gets angry at Charlie.
Yeah, poor Charlie.
Poor Charlie.
I like it when he's just like, this is a good job.
And, yeah, so Charlie's pretty funny about it, because he's like, I just want to remind you that, like, I'm not wearing a helmet or, like, pads or, like, any kind of protective gear. And he asks Dr. Bartlett about it, and turns out Dr. Bartlett wrote it to a woman who she had seen, I think she had seen, like, on the news, whose husband was abusive, and so she sent her a check because she had kids. Like, set the bed on fire, just a bunch of crazy, not good stuff. So that's where the check came from.
And she hadn't cashed it because she framed it.
Yeah, she framed it, which there's another moment where I, like, swell with, not patriotism, but that's an emotional moment to think of this woman who's so in need, but who is just so overwhelmed by this act of kindness from someone so important that she frames the check.
This was back before Instagram, where I would have just taken a picture of it and took that thing to the bank. Sorry. Sentimentality don't pay your bills. You know what I'm saying? Shoot.
So there's that. There's also, which I think might come back into play more in the next episode. I can't really remember, but it sort of felt like it got dropped a little bit. But there's another storyline in this episode that I wanted to talk about, because in the State of the Union, President Bartlett points out a police officer from the Detroit Police.
Yes.
Who did something with an elementary school. And we haven't found out what yet, but he had some sort of act of heroism when he was off duty at an elementary school. Well, that's all well and good, but turns out he also had an excessive force charge against him 17 years ago. Right. Mm-hmm. And so now there's a dilemma because they didn't really vet him properly, and it's going to be a thing. It's going to be a news story. And once again, and I said this last episode that we would see this again in this episode, he's such a sympathetic character and actor that, like, he's just CJ's like, why didn't you tell us? And he was like, I thought I was good. I thought it was all okay now. And you just have to know that, like, you know, this something's been following him around forever. And the look on his face when he says that, like, I thought I was okay now. Like, he thought he had washed the board clean. And it was a very emotional thing.
He was almost crying the whole time.
Yeah.
A lot of pathos in that scene.
Yeah, I thought that was, I don't know, because it's exactly like what we talked about last episode with the whole, like, what they have to do to be politically correct isn't what feels right most of the time. Not most of the time.
You kind of wonder, like, what the political landscape would be, or what the media landscape would be, probably more appropriately, if there was a lot less of the PC actions taken. You know what I'm saying? Not that we would just abandon all decorum, but you kind of wonder, like, what percentage of what is done is because of political posturing and media. I'm sure a great deal. But this show, shows it in a way that doesn't make you feel... I mean, it doesn't make you feel good, but at least you kind of empathize with, like, well, every decision has collateral damage. You know, everything has a consequence, both in how it's perceived and then in reality. And it's always gray. It's always really tricky. So, and especially when you attach the human story to it, like we say,
it is. They're so good at that human story. I feel like I still have so many notes, but they're just tiny things. The whole episode's so packed with little things. I love that they count how many times he's interrupted for applause. I feel like they've mentioned that before, but I just like that that's a thing that happens.
That's a lot. They said like 73 times? That's a lot of interruption. How long was the thing?
That's a good question. But I just think that's a cool statistic to count. And then different about the CJ and Ainsley sitting in paint storyline. It's sort of just like...
I kind of liked it.
Did you like it? It sort of just felt a little silly to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's but I have a penchant. I love things that are silly, pretty much at any juncture. True. And especially because CJ was asking Sam, like, don't you want to know why I'm not wearing pants? And he's like, I just assumed it was the usual reason. I mean, just little things like that, that's worth it to me.
I do love... This is another example of... because... And I think it was Pam who wrote in to talk to us about this. When we talked about the baton twirling comment several episodes ago, that it was sort of a sexist off-the-cuff comment by Sam that then led to a great delivery by Ainsley about, like, Harvard. That's where I learned baton twirling. I think the same, and Pam wrote in and said, the same thing happens later when CJ and Sam are talking about the bathrobes, and that's so true, that this episode that Sam's like, this is outrageous. There's 50 women and there's 1,000 men, and, you know, we don't get bathrobes, and CJ looks at him and is like, yes, the bathrobes are what's outrageous.
That's what's outrageous.
CJ's delivery, like, Allison Janney's delivery of that line, her face is just like, Sam, really? It's just so funny.
Oh, man. I totally agree. Well, should we pick an MVP then? I mean, that's all I have.
It
felt like it ended in the middle of the episode for me. So, I mean, I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's very true.
With that.
I liked a few more things about Josh and the power going out. I liked Josh in this whole scenario where he's just stressed out. Like when he said, I need numbers, Tonto. I like that a lot. Yeah. And we also really haven't talked about the Columbia situation, because I really like that we don't know a ton about it yet. We know that there are like 5 or 6 DEA agents that have been abducted, and they're being held, and they're being guarded by probably several hundred people, which is obviously an issue. Like if we go try and rescue them, it could start a war. Like it's a very, very not good issue. One thing I like about it is that it's just interesting to think about, you know, like we see the State of the Union every year, and it's interesting to think about it from this point of view that, like, after that camera goes off and, like, things go back to business, like, there's still so much going on that, you know, like, you would think, the State of the Union episode's just going to be about the State of the Union. And it's crazy to remember, like, you know, like, the people in Colombia don't care that it's the State of the Union night. They're not going to not kidnap those DEA agents because of that. Like, the world is still going on, even on these big, important moments, like holidays or anything like that. And so I thought that was interesting. It's also interesting that I did not remember that happened at all in this episode. It's weird how I have selective memory about the West. I remember the cop. I remember the cop's whole storyline, but not the...
Well, there's more of an emotional core to the cop story.
That's true.
So far.
As of now, yeah.
As of right now.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that's understandable.
I agree. Well, I think that's it. There's one scene where Josh is reading Vogue, which is fun. But other than that, that's all.
He's reading Vogue?
Yeah, and when he's like waiting, he's sitting on a couch, and he's flipping through a magazine, talking on the phone, and then he holds the magazine up a second later, and it's Vogue.
He needs to be reading one of those articles about, like, how not to be an idiot.
Yeah, really.
You know, like how to know a girl wants to go out with you and how to be emotionally available. Yep. He could probably stand to read one of those articles.
Yeah,
He's not alone. All right, well, who shall we pick?
Who's
Are you
yours?
Gonna pick the police officer? I don't know. Ainsley was great. Sam, I feel like Sam, Ainsley, Joey. I don't know. I can't decide yet.
I think maybe I'll pick Ainsley. We don't get to see her that much in many episodes, but I just love at the end, before the president comes down and sort of ruins it for her, I just love that she's like, I did great, and I had a great night, and now I'm going to have a drink and enjoy myself. I thought she just really, I don't know, I liked this episode for her, and nobody else really stood out to compete.
Yeah, so. I agree. Although Donna was good. You know, there's some good things. Joey Lucas was good.
Yeah, everyone was good. There really wasn't that much of a standout for me this episode.
There wasn't. I'll go with Ainsley too. I agree with that.
Okay. All right.
Hooray! I hope she's back for a while. I mean, I don't like it when she's not there.
Yeah, she doesn't have a ton of episodes left, but I like when she's around as well.
Okay. Well, that's great. If you guys have thoughts, feelings, things we missed, things that you have opinions on, feel free to write to us at TheWestWingPodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit us up on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, all of them now, at Wingin It Pod. And we love hearing from you. It's super fun for us. So
it really is.
Just drop us a line.
Let us.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next time. The War at Home is our next episode. So,
man, that sounds like a good time, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
All right, we'll see ya.
Bye, guys.
Bye.